You ever wonder if there's like a blueprint for building a really meaningful life? I'm not just talking about a successful one, but one that's got real purpose, real integrity at its core. Well, today, we're diving into exactly that. We're going to pull from some incredibly powerful ancient texts to see if we can piece together a blueprint that's just as relevant now as it was thousands of years ago.
So let's kick things off with the big question. What does it actually take to build something that lasts? Whether you're thinking about a strong community, an unstoppable movement, or just your own personal character, the principles for building something that truly endures, they're surprisingly timeless.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to journey through a few key moments. We'll start by seeing how a kingdom is built on loyalty. Then, we'll learn a tough lesson about the danger of good intentions. After that, we'll witness a mission that just could not be stopped. We'll zoom in on wisdom for daily integrity, and then, at the end, we'll connect all those dots into one big blueprint.
All right, first up, a kingdom built on loyalty. We're zeroing in on one of history's most famous leaders, King David, to see what the very foundation of his rule was made of. What made it so strong, right from the get-go?
The bedrock of David's entire kingdom can be boiled down to one word: unity. When he's crowned king, the nation isn't fractured. The text says all the tribes came together with a loyal heart. And his warriors, they were so disciplined, they could keep ranks. This wasn't about a bunch of individual superstars. It was about a collective, disciplined devotion to a shared cause.
And get this, for a picture of that loyalty. One day, David just casually mentions he's thirsty for a drink of water from his old hometown well, which happens to be behind enemy lines. So what happens? 3 of his most elite warriors hear him, risk everything, fight their way through enemy territory, and bring him back the water.
But it's David's reaction that really tells the story. He is so blown away by their sacrifice that he can't bring himself to drink it. He looks at it and says, "This isn't water. This is the lifeblood of these men." So he pours it out on the ground as a sacred offering to God. This shows a leader who gets it. Loyalty and sacrifice are so precious you have to honor them, not just consume them. That's the foundation.
Okay, so a foundation of loyalty, check. But that's not the whole story. The next piece of our blueprint comes from a pretty painful mistake, one that teaches us that good intentions, well, they aren't always enough.
So here's the setup. David has a noble goal. He wants to bring the Ark of God, the very symbol of God's presence, to his new capital, Jerusalem. Great idea, right? Absolutely. But there was a specific instruction for how to do it. God's method was crystal clear. A specific family line, the Levites, had to carry it using special poles. But David decides to put it on a brand new cart pulled by oxen instead.
And this is where it all goes tragically wrong. The oxen stumble, the cart lurches, and a man named Uzzah does what any of us would probably do. He reaches out his hand to stop the sacred ark from falling and hitting the dirt. His intention was perfect, but the result was catastrophic. He was struck down instantly. It's a shocking, jarring moment that left David totally shaken.
So why? What on earth happened? It all comes down to this concept of God's holiness. Think of it like a massive electrical power station. It's the source of incredible energy and life, but you can't just wander in and casually touch the transformers, even if you mean well. You have to approach it with incredible respect and follow the procedure. The lesson here is huge. When you're dealing with something truly sacred, how you do something is every bit as important as what you are doing.
All right, we've got the foundation of loyalty and the crucial lesson of reverence. Now, let's shift gears. We're going to go from building a kingdom to fueling an unstoppable movement with the Apostle Paul.
I mean, Paul's journey to Rome is just wild. He's a prisoner on a ship that gets completely wrecked in a storm, he washes up on an island, and while he's trying to build a fire, a deadly viper latches onto his hand. Everyone expects him to die, but he just shakes it off into the fire. And he finally gets to Rome, not as a free man, but in chains. By all accounts, his mission should be totally over.
But what's the first thing Paul does? He doesn't wallow or complain. He immediately calls together the local leaders and turns his house arrest into a platform. He literally uses his chains as a talking point to share his message about Jesus.
And this brings us to the final, powerful mic drop word of the entire book of Acts. For 2 full years, while in Roman custody, Paul proclaims the kingdom of God unhindered. Just think about that. Despite a shipwreck, a snakebite, and chains, the purpose that drove him moved forward without a single obstacle. This gives us a key part of our blueprint. A life that's aligned with God's purpose has a kind of momentum that circumstances just can't stop.
So we have our strong foundation and our unstoppable momentum. But what does all this look like on a random Tuesday afternoon, in the day-to-day grind? For that, we turn to the book of Proverbs to look at the fine print of our blueprint. Proverbs gives us this picture, two different sets of weights and measures. See, in the ancient marketplace, this was the ultimate scam. You'd use a heavy weight when you were buying and a lighter, dishonest weight when you were selling. It's a perfect symbol for being two-faced, for saying one thing and doing another. And the text calls this practice an abomination. That's a powerful word that shows just how seriously God takes simple, everyday honesty.
And the wisdom keeps coming. It's not just about what you do, but who you become. Your integrity doesn't just impact you, it actually creates a legacy that blesses your children for generations. And this one's great. True honor isn't found in winning every single argument, but in being wise enough to avoid pointless fights. These are the small, daily choices that build a life of real substance.
And I absolutely love this comparison. The text honors both ends of life. It says the glory of youth is its physical strength, its energy. But the beauty of old age, that's the gray head, a symbol of wisdom, of experience, of a life well lived. It's a beautiful reminder that every single stage of life has its own unique dignity and value.
Okay, let's bring it all home. We've looked at David, we've looked at Paul, we've looked at Proverbs. So how do these pieces lock together to form one single powerful blueprint for a purposeful life?
Well, here it is, laid out in 3 steps. First, you need the foundation, and that's what we learned from David. It's all built on loyalty, a respect for sacrifice, and a deep reverence for what is holy. Second, you've got the momentum, which we saw with Paul. Once a life is aligned with God's purpose, nothing can truly stop it. And third, you have the details from Proverbs. This big purpose isn't just an abstract idea. It becomes real in the 1,000 small daily choices of integrity, honesty, and wisdom.
Think of it like a giant tree. The deep, strong roots, that's the loyalty and holiness from David's story. The trunk and branches growing unstoppable against any storm, that's the momentum of purpose we saw in Paul. And the fruit, the tangible result that people can actually see, that comes from the daily integrity taught in Proverbs. You really can't have one without the others.
And that leaves us with one last question for you. Looking at this blueprint, the foundation, the momentum, the daily details, which part of it is speaking to you right now? Which piece are you going to focus on building with today?